Hey there, everybody. Top of the afternoon from here where we're at. JP, my good friend, and myself, of course, here with Asymmetric Habits, official episode number 3. And today we're talking about using automation to make your life easier, which is something we came across while like just talking before this. We can both still do better with. Me actually surprisingly giving JP an idea for what to do with this. And this for me is a huge struggle point that I've been actually working on for a long time. So I know I'll be able to relate to a lot of people in that aspect who just really try to figure out where to automate, feeling comfortable enough to do it, actually going through the process and doing it, all sorts of those steps because I move at a snail's pace when it comes to making these types of changes, but they help. And that is why we're here talking about today. What do you got,
Yeah,
brother?
and one of the things that really made me think about this is not that any single automated thing you can do in your life is its own massively beneficial habit necessarily, but the really the core thing that's beneficial for most people that I've found is just having the mindset of automating as many things as possible because what ends up happening is that there's two sides of this coin that basically add up to a ton of extra work that people are doing that they don't necessarily have to be or is not necessarily beneficial. So I actually want to start off by talking about the less solvable problem because it's the thing that makes automating as much as possible really helpful. Um, when I was originally introduced to this idea, somebody called it shadow work. But if you Google that, you'll get a completely different idea. So I don't know if there's an official term for this, but basically, presently in the world we inhabit, we have to be able to do a lot of jobs. So I mean, let's take my job. I do counseling for a living, and I've got to be able to do that job. But as part of that, I actually also have to be moderately proficient in numerous computer programs, including Excel and Word and sometimes databases. And I have to be moderately proficient in stuff that used to be done by other people, but it's now done by us. I have to know how the self checkout runs at Kroger, and I have to be able to, figure out how to pay my bills even though like you don't write a check and send it in anymore. And so what's happened is in the world we inhabit, well, it's not really anybody's fault. It just kind of happened this way. We actually have to take on a crazy amount of knowledge and a crazy amount of decision making and proficiency that you wouldn't have had 150 years ago. And the human brain is not particularly well designed to be a skilled generalist in 700 different skill areas. And so really, the entire reason we're talking about automation, the entire reason it's valuable is because what you're doing is you're taking all of this background work or shadow work or whatever you want to call it, and you're just eliminating as much of it as humanly possible to take some of the load off of the brain and at least get it roughly returning to a state that it's much more optimally designed for. So that's part one is just the unsolvable part of the rise of all of this extra work we aren't designed for.
Man, you took this and instantly took a hard right to that, yeah, like unsolvable part because I did not think about any of that at all. But that's so true, especially when it's like you said, all the extra jobs that we do. It's funny as I was thinking about the like professionally, you and I, neither one of us are in a job or industry that like the forward facing part of what we do does not compute with automation. Like it's not something that can be automated because we're both dealing face to face with other people. There's that human interaction,
Mhm.
and we're both really dealing with what those people actually do. In your case, what they say, how they emote, how they react. And in my case, I mean, yeah, how people actually perform physically, how their bodies respond, things like that. Those are things that can't be automated. Whereas some entire industries or jobs are facing like pure automation which might have come up. But just like you said, those are the forward facing parts of the job, and there are so many other parts to it that we usually have to do, just like you mentioned, whether it's data collection, billing, etc. And a lot of times, especially if you're someone like us or just in any, almost anybody in their job, there's probably like the forward facing part of the job, there's a chance that that might be the part we actually want to do. Like, you want to counsel, I want to coach. And then the more things we have to do that take us from that, then really, like, I mean, it's like at best, that's more extra time we have to spend doing stuff. At
Mhm.
worst, it's actually really decreasing the quality of both our product and service and or just our happiness with it, one or the other or both, because again, we're not getting to do what we want to do as often as we want to do it.
Yeah, so what somebody suggested to me the other day, they were like, "Well, I mean, you'd have more time if you actually just reduced your caseload and just spent more time managing the business." I was like, "Dude, this is the fun part, is the caseload."
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like when I tell people, like a lot of my goals with the business at the gym are almost seem like full circle because I do want to get systems figured out. I want to get the smart pieces of automation figured out and all that so that I don't have to be in the coach's seat, but I don't want to have to be in any of the seats so that I can actually come back full circle and then coach and then only focus on the coaching again and know that the rest of the circle is taken care of
Mhm.
again. Um, yeah, so it's funny how like we're talking right now about in the professional setting automation, but like you said, for so many other people, there's so many parts of daily life that you'd like. There's work, but there's all or school, and then there's maybe family and or relationships and physical fitness and you know keeping your house in order and you know making food, errands, just all that basic stuff again that really adds up and makes so many people feel like they're always running out of time. And that is where I feel like a lot of the value of automation comes from in just a normal everyday life is like in those pieces where can you automate some of these things that aren't things that you absolutely love to do because you want to keep a hold of those if you can. Yeah, so where can you decrease the time spent and the energy spent on those pieces so that but using automation so that you can focus on the things you actually want to do more or at least have the bigger impact.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the obvious stuff first, because some people are probably listening to this and they have never been introduced to this idea. And then there's going to be some people who already know this is a good idea and are maybe looking for more information.
Mhm.
So we got to make sure to get to them too. But the obvious part is technological automation. And I admit I had a struggle thinking about this because after we said we were going to talk about this, I put it in the background of my mind of like, okay, pay attention to what you've got automated around you. And I've actually had a lot of things automated for so long that I really struggled with that. And I had to pay a lot of attention to see what I had automated because I've had it that way for 6 or 7 or 8 years. But if I look at my own technological automation, and these jive with some of the ones that are you could just Google like ways to automate your life. Clearly, I consulted a list at some point because several of these things are on most of the lists you can Google. But the most obvious one is things like bills. All of my
Mhm.
bills, with the notable exception of my utility bills, for some reason, as we noticed when we were talking
Yep.
before this. I'm not sure why, but especially all the business bills, it's all automated, right down to the rent payment. Everything just comes out of the credit cards or bank accounts or whatever. I have all of the opportunity to look in and make sure the wheels are turning nicely, but I never pay a bill. The bills are just paid automatically.
Yeah,
Uh,
and hold on real quick because this sounds like I said, this can sound so simple. It almost like like we've mentioned before, the human ability to round things down to being zero time. We
yeah,
talked about this is one of those. Like I pay like it took me 8 years, 8 plus years to finally reach the point of putting my bills on auto pay as dumb as ridiculous as that was and is. But I can tell you 100% that when the day to pay bills would come every month, I would spend an hour to an hour and a half paying bills. Like it was an actual process that took time. Again, it wasn't just simply like, oh, it's bills. It took like 5 minutes just automatically. No, I
Yeah,
mean, it
especially
was
if you're writing a check too.
yeah, exactly. Like it was an hour and a half, like writing checks or putting in credit card manually, deciding what I was going to use to pay for it. And now, just like you said, I got 100% of those finally on auto pay. It's awesome. All I do is take now it really is 2 minutes just when I go back and maybe make one note to make sure that it was done, and that's it. So it is a real time saver. So continue.
Yeah. Well, and even if somebody doesn't have as many bills as you do, and they only take 30 minutes, if you multiply that 30 minutes by 12 and then divide by the number of hours, what we get?
6 hours.
That's total of 6 hours. Uh, so on bullet point number one, we just yanked 6 hours back into somebody's pocket for a year. Uh, and this is exactly why I said right at the top. Automation, if you automate one thing, it doesn't do a lot for you. But as soon as you start doing it with as many things as you can, you start getting critical gains pretty quickly. Because we're on bullet point number one, and we already did 4 to 6 hours. For you, it was significantly more, but uh, and that's assuming everybody can sit down and rapidly do it as fast as they're able to. Most people, they've got to like hem and haw about it, and they've got to, like, oh God, I don't want to sit down and do this. And so it really eats up more time than just that 30 to
Right.
90 minutes.
Right.
So let's see, we got bill automation.
On the flip
And
side, so like, well, because like it's almost the same thing, but financially related on exact same idea, but flip side. If you can apply the same automation to some form of savings, emergency fund building, investing, retirement, like whatever, but anything like that, if you're able to, like that's one of those things where that can make a huge difference to so many people. So many people, like like I have, you probably have at some point, most people do at some point, live in the like what do we have left at the end of the month, or what do we have left at the end of the paycheck period. We have that type of financial, like just like brain in essence, like not think about it. So when it comes time to like, oh, are you saving for retirement, or are you building an emergency fund, anything like that, so often the answer is no, or almost nothing, because it's just what's left. But then a few years ago, when I was first introduced to the idea of like profit first, we're getting same idea, like savings first, retirement first, any of that. So automating, putting like money from the upfront of your paycheck, like going straight into an account you want to build up. And then, so like that's part's already taken care of. Then you just like budget, rebudget, or whatever, focus on what you have left. And again, it's less stress because you don't have to remember how to do it. And it is happening without you having to worry about it. So you're finally building up some savings. Again, even if it's just that little $25 a month, whatever, at least to build up something and just go from there.
well, there was this one thing back ages ago when I used to work in banking. Bank of America and a couple of other banks had this gig where it would round up your purchases. Like if you paid $2.50, it would round up to $3. You'd pay your $2.50 to your merchant, and that additional 50 cents would go into your savings account. And that was a wonderful automation for savings. I mean, I don't know. It depends on how much you would use a debit card, but it worked wonderfully, and you didn't even have to set it up. You had to click yes, I agree to this, and that was the extent of your involvement. And suddenly, you had automated savings coming in. So yeah, there's all kinds of options for that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So I just thought that'd be a great one to add, like was hand in hand with things like pay, like automating bills. So just really
Mhm.
automating a lot of revenue in general. What are the other ideas?
There's another bill I've found out that I save a ton of time on just by virtue of how I have mine set up. Parking. So where I work, that you have to pay to park. But one of the options, because you have a coin operated machine you can use, you have a little app you can use, or if you want to, you can pay for the full year up front and get a parking pass. Uh, and that's what I ended up doing because you can only buy 2 hours or 3 hours or something like that at a time if you do the coins or the app. But when I paid for the parking pass, I basically took 10 minutes, walked down to the parking office, and walked back versus like what would it be let's say 2 minutes 3 times a day for 5 days a week for 45 working weeks out of the year. That's about 1,350 minutes that you would spend versus my 10 from automation.
Yep.
And not to mention for forgetting and then having to pay a parking ticket, because if you forget, then the attendants down here are pretty aggressive. They'll get you.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, you know. And I kind of forgot about that until I was literally driving in this morning, and I waved my little parking pass in front of the parking garage, and I was like, "Oh, wait, that's an automation that I have had for 7 years and completely forgot about."
Yeah. So here's another part of automation that I've been using a lot lately, and uh, like so is my fiance actually, is things that we in the end have to do ourselves, such as living a healthier lifestyle. Like, in the end, we have to do that. We have to actually eat better, work out more, move more, whatever, drink more water, etc. But there are at least some things we can automate usually to support those changes. So we're talking healthy lifestyle here, but again, this can be used in a lot of different ways. But so example is like I've been getting better with meal preparation, but what I found is that actually an old throwback is, I grew up as a teenager and going through my early 20s when I was competitive with most of my training, with the full protein powder meals, you name it. But I hadn't really had protein powder in 10 years or longer because I hadn't trained seriously, in essence. Like I hadn't trained that type of serious anymore. So I didn't feel like it was necessary, so to speak. Um, but I decided to go back to it. I found out that I actually do feel better when I take a good high quality protein powder, just like first thing in the morning, as in essence, my quote unquote breakfast, and then just another protein powder for after I work out. And so having those shipped to me automatically, like a subscription, it's no longer something that I have to worry about. Do I run out? Do I need to go buy some, etc. And I do that with a couple of other things. Like I every morning I take a lot. I
Well,
take a
hold
lot.
on. Let me pause you because you actually have like several automations here that are worth
Oh, cool.
mentioning. Because you have a technological automation, which is you have basically your pre-programmed protein powder shipped to you. And you went in and set that up like I want it once every however many months in this amount. So that's the technological automation. And then you have a second one, which I plan to bring up, which is that routines themselves are automation. Because if you know where you are going to be at 6:30 on a Friday, and that's just where you're at, one of the things you do is you reduce some of that background work, like we were talking about before. You're not trying to okay, well, what do I want to do tonight? Do I want to go out on a date? Do I want to like hit the gym? Do I want to? If you have an established routine, you completely have eliminated that work because you know where you're going to be. Um, quite in fact, we kind of joke because I've taken this to that part to an extreme. One of my friends, was joking with me. He's like, "Well, I can tell you where he is. Just tell me what day of the week it is and what time." Oh yeah, he's a jujitsu that night. Um, but yeah, that's a type of automation. The more you have created a routine, the more it's automated. Matter of fact, some years ago, Mark Zuckerberg was quite famous for, and Steve Jobs before that, for only ever wearing the same outfit.
Mhm.
That's a type of automation because you have eliminated the 5 to 10 minutes that you might have stood in front of your closet figuring out what am I wearing today. Uh, I've done a similar thing. Like if you see me at work, I'm wearing one of two polo shirts, and it's determined by whichever one is clean. Uh,
That's cool.
So routines themselves are automation. The more you can actually make routines that you just submit yourself to, that's actually a completely different type of automation and one that's a little harder to find ideas for online.
That's a really good point. You're such a smart counselor. But because
I didn't pay him to say that.
I hadn't even thought it about me pointing that out with routines. Um, yeah, because just the other part I was going to mention with that was I've also found there's going to be a plug for a company that has no idea I'm plugging them. But if LMNT, there we go, electrolyte drinks really want to sponsor anybody, I'm all ears, and so is this podcast, because it's a like just amazing electrolyte powder drink, and it's one of these things where actually, again, like feel so much better drinking that in the morning. I found I go through notorious cramps. Like I'm a crazy cramper a lot of times. Like I would cramp easily 15 times a day. And one of those things where like no matter how much I drank, otherwise, I found that putting this in like getting one of these every single day, especially in the morning, they're almost all gone. Again, completely unofficial plug, but I just like the product that much for me. And a lot of people have started taking it since. But yet again, as soon as I find something, I'm like, okay, this is awesome, and it's awesome every day. If it's possible, subscription. Again, just boom. I don't have to worry about it. And it's all, it's like every month, every 4 weeks, whatever it is, type of thing that, like, again, like even a year ago, I was very iffy about subscriptions because I had so many excuses in my mind that I would go through for possibly falling off track. That was my biggest reason. Was either, oh, like I might miss by a few weeks and what happens, then I build it up. Oh, might not want to spend the money that month, something like that. Not that they're expensive per se, but all those different excuses would stop me from doing those things. And then finally, when I embraced it, I was like, okay, I actually feel a lot better when I'm doing this. So let me just go ahead and do it. And if any of those obstacles do come up, figure it out then. And in those cases, like most subscriptions, it's really easy to skip it for a month or a shipment, whatever. So I
Yeah.
mean, again, they're not even valid. It's just a type of thing that can so frequently and easily stop you from doing something just because it comes up as an excuse.
Yeah, remember how I said it was kind of hard for me to spot my automations? Talking about that. For those who are actually watching this on video and can see us, Dollar Shave Club. Like, basically, I just get my head shaving razors delivered to my door, um, and I never have to think about it. Just I always have enough.
Mhm.
So we got a couple there. We got technological automation, and I think probably that's the one we'll spend less time giving examples of, just because that's the easiest one for people to like find online and find ideas for. And that's really very specific to a person's life, because not everybody's business owners. Like I use email filters a ton of technological automation, but there's a lot of people who would find no value in that. But those are the easiest to find stuff. Now the routine automations,
Yes.
those would be wise for us to spend another few minutes on before we go on to a couple of others that I have in mind. One of the things that I found is really good for people who are into fitness. I don't know if it'll work for people who aren't super into fitness like you and me. Uh, but an automation I really found valuable starting about 5 or 6 years ago is I discovered I can eat the same thing every day. I actually don't need variety in my diet. uh, Past a certain point. I've been eating the same stew for lunch that I have in a little Hot Logic down in the kitchen that just keeps it hot. And I go down there, take a few spoonfuls whenever I'm hungry, go back, and basically my entire lunch is automated. I don't have to figure out where do I go eat, what am I taking for lunch today. Uh, Quite in fact, I've automated it to the point where I make get a few batches made, freeze it in these little cubes that I bought, these silicone cubes. And one of my friends jokingly said that in my freezer I had a soup library, because it's just lined up cubes of soup.
Oh man,
But I mean, I'm not
see
sure
that.
how I couldn't even begin to calculate how many hours I saved for that. Like right here, I would actually have to sit down and think about that for a while. But the number of hours I have to save with that must be quite substantial, I would
That's great. I want to see the soup library, to tell you the truth. I want a picture.
think. Next time I get it all frozen, I'll send you a picture.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm actually the same way with the I can eat the same thing almost every time, and so I do like one of those changes that I made a couple month or a month ago or so was so I had finally gotten into a better habit of both working out on a little bit more routine basis and starting to eat better as well. So I decided to take what I thought I was ready for the next step, and what I did was write basically a menu and yeah, like 3 things are basically the same every day, and the actual meals had just 2 options. And again, like these were simple, and I mean, I'm not stressing so much about it, which I would have in the past, like way back when past, but I would have stressed about it as like it has to be these two. Like if I gave myself these two options, it has to be these two options, or I failed. So I'm not there anymore, like thankfully. But it was like two options for each one, and really one of the best parts about it was either each option is either very simple to make or still simple to make and also very easy to make, say like 4 or 6 servings of it once, yeah, and just store it, and that way it's actually ready for several days. I said just keep having that same thing. um and if somebody else wants some, for dinner or whatever, then it's like awesome, yeah, I made a lot, or there's several left here, so it's also easy to spread it about to the family or whatever. So so yeah, like routines and food, I think will go highly underrated. So I think that's definitely a good one for sure. Um, and kind of
Yeah, yeah.
semantics on that, like some
What is it?
semantics, like kind of some semantics on that too, is like talking like healthy lifestyle ish. If you can get a simple routine that does make you feel better and feel healthier with that, is that it's also giving you, like, this is not an excuse, but it is giving you a better situation to make random choices that aren't aligned with that and balancing them out very well. Like when I eat better almost every day because I have a very simple eating routine now, if the family wants to go out for burgers or like, hey, let's get pizza and watch a movie, if we do that, I intuitively already feel better even after eating it. Whereas if I ate completely random garbage every single day, which is my default setting, I am not a healthy eater by default. So if I'm eating that every day, it just keeps cycling worse.
Let me say that back to you because I think I got it. So basically, when you're on your automated eating routine, trying to do the calculus of is it okay for me to go out for pizza with the family is much more rapid because, like, well, of course it is because I've been on track all week.
Right. I
Okay,
mean,
all right, that
exactly.
makes sense.
Yeah, the calculus, but then also the energy, because I, in essence, have been like, because I almost always think of like this at some point or another, I have to come up with like lines or physics or graphs. So in essence, if my default how I feel is in the middle, and eating well constantly has me shifting you over to feeling better and better and better, then a little push in the other side because we're getting pizza is completely more fine and okay with it because I'm not aiming for perfection anymore.
Yeah,
Whereas if I always just ate random and garbage, then any given bad meal could be the one that just has me like really feeling just worse, less quality, worse energy, whatever it is.
yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. Um,
Before we go on, is there any other routines worth mentioning? Because I couldn't think of any others that I obviously do, but I know there's
I
dozens of
do
them in the background that I'm no longer consciously
feel
aware of.
like calendar routines can be helpful as well. Especially when it comes to like tasks or like either tasks or there's things that come up. I mean, some of them are basically built in, like trash day everywhere that I know of is the same every week. I mean, it's a different day, but if your trash day is on Tuesday, your trash day is always on Tuesday unless a holiday changes it.
Right.
So I mean, there's that type that's pretty simple and already there. But it's like, okay, every morning or the night before maybe is when I go out and put the trash. But similar things, like let's say there's a lot of like let's say whether anything from a property that needs a good amount of cleanup, or you have things you want to do or clean the house, or even outside the home stuff. But maybe if it's like, okay, like you know every weekend let's just go do something like this, or like every Wednesday I'm going to clean the cat litter box, whatever it is. But like just in the idea of routines, I feel like a lot of those, if you just make them a simple calendar repetitive routine, that works out very
You
easily.
know what? Let me share two that just put in mind before we go on to the next category, because this is like routine slash technological automations. I just created a new calendar, and I'm excited to see how this works out because uh, I have a bunch of stuff that is due every month, every year, and it's gotten unwieldy now to keep track of. And so now I have a new, for those who don't know, when you have a Google Calendar, you can actually create multiple calendars and have two or three or a dozen of them. And I have one that's now recurring tasks. And anytime there is a thing coming up, it goes into the recurring tasks calendar. So all of my people that work for me that have contracts, their contract renewal dates go into the thing. Payday, when I have to have payroll done, goes into the thing. And now I just have, and it shows up differently in my calendar. And it shows me, hey, you have a recurring task to do today. Make sure that gets done first. So when I walk in, I don't accidentally get wrapped up in other stuff and it's time to leave and I realize I didn't do payroll and I got to do that before I leave.
Mhm.
Because that has happened an unfortunate number of times. So a
Same.
recurring task calendar is an automation I'm currently experimenting with, and one that I started maybe a year ago and I've really loved is I don't, for those who don't know, when you go to your contacts in your phone, especially old people like me, uh, back when we put contacts in our phone, it was just a phone number. Now there's all kinds of stuff, including sections for notes. If there's something I think would be useful to remember, I go to my contacts in my phone and I'll take a note. Uh, Found out one of my friends had an almond allergy the other day, and it's somebody who we might one day have over for dinner or something. So I was like, oh, okay, go to the notes, almond allergy. Uh, yeah, or I'll record birthdays and stuff. And what that does is that basically frees up a bunch of my memory space because I don't have to rely on it and do that background work of remembering now. Now it's just in there. And all I have to do is like, oh, hey, this person's coming over. Is there anything I need to remember? Oh, yeah, this.
Hmm.
And those two automation routines seem to be reasonably good so far, but they're early on, so I can't fully
Yeah.
endorse them yet until I get a little more data.
I mean, I do really think that one of the most valuable pieces from this podcast, hopefully for people, is seeing where automation and basically like the human learning process are in some ways that same thing. But example, we're just using like with the technology and purposeful routines and purposeful calendars, just trying to augment what we already do adapt to. Like you said, like we're just our biggest struggle, like you mentioned at the very beginning, is that we have way too many things happening at one time that we're responsible for, or in a short amount of time than than humans were quote unquote supposed to. Like you said, our brains are way behind in this. Um, but we learn, and I mean that's kind of the human advantage. But so the more we can use the creating routines, using calendars, technology advancements when applicable or when we can, then the simpler that it becomes.
Mhm.
Just like that. It's like, it's like
So I want to do the next one because it deserves mention. I don't know that we'll take too much time on it, but just like routines, decision making frameworks are automation, and they
mm,
are really important to free up a lot of space. Uh, and just like with routines, you can make decision making frameworks around anything. Right now, my very favorite one uh, that I have for myself is around investing. And my decision making framework really eliminates 97% of stuff because one of the
I know
things,
what this is. I think I know what this is, and I'm excited.
yeah. So one of the things that happens to a lot of people is, if they start figuring out like, oh, what am I going to do for retirement? There's a billion things out there. It's too much. You can't. I mean, unless you were literally a supercomputer, you couldn't track it all. So my simple decision making framework is: do I understand it?
Mm.
That eliminates a ton of stuff. Like crypto, don't understand it. I'm out of crypto.
Oh man.
I might throw a few bucks in one day and see if I hit the billions, but uh, and if there's a product, do I believe in the product? So McDonald's is a wonderful money making machine. You'll never see me own a McDonald's franchise, not because I don't think they're a bad investment, but because I don't like their product. I don't like their food. So, and that's not a dig. That's just, that's a nice, easy way for me to be like, well, okay, I am not going to have anything to do with you. Whereas Five Guys, I would invest in Five Guys because I like Five Guys burgers and I understand the model.
Mhm. Warren Buffett says something similar to that, actually. Like,
I adapted it largely from him because as soon as I was like, oh, okay, why the hell would I invest in anything that I don't understand?
yeah,
And so what it does is in automation, it lets me look at something quickly, and say, oh, I have no interest in this. And then it doesn't have to take up brain space about like, oh, what if you missed out on an opportunity there? Is it nope, didn't miss out on an opportunity. Don't understand it, no clue. It's like playing the lottery. In my head, it's in the same category as playing the lottery once I
Oh
don't
yeah,
understand
it's gambling. Spoken by a frequent gambler here.
it. And gambling's okay if you got the money to lose.
I like never actually gamble in the traditional sense, but I may as well. Sometimes, but I do take it all in the learn. It's like what random tangent. Yeah, it's like I've been working on trying to learn about like options and calls and putts and all that stuff too in the trading market. And yeah, talk about things that I just do not understand intuitively. So, and it's like, oh man, but I'm determined. And yeah, I have that like little cushion of that little pocket of money that in essence is my okay. This is my I can lose this money as long as I'm learning something.
Yeah.
We'll see
But
how
for automation purposes, the framework basically lets me immediately reject all kinds of stuff, and then I'm left with the 2 or 3% that I have some risk of actually understanding,
yeah.
and then I can just look at that.
No. It's funny because the one that I thought you were gonna say, because it's the first one that came to mind, even before you mentioned your personal even before you mentioned the details. And then when you said 99%, I was like, oh, this is gonna be it. Was just that it's a saying I don't think I'd ever heard till like 5 years ago, but I hear it all the time now. But if it's not if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no. that's, that's what I thought you were going for. But yeah, because like so often, I mean, I feel like this is a personal thing for me. Like I'll sit there with so many little decisions, and I know that I am being picky about something that in the end does not matter that much or is not that big of a deal, but for some reason I can't make that decision and I'm sitting there trying to figure one out. And so often I'm like, wow, like I know that I'm spending time on something that is not that big of a deal, but I'm still stuck in that. And but when I recognize is that awareness, when I'm aware that that's what I'm doing, and then I pull myself back and I'm like, okay, this is not a hell yes. So just gonna go. So it's gonna
Dude,
be
that is one of my favorite frameworks. That is because it's so simple and it eliminates so much decision making, especially for social stuff.
oh yeah. Yeah. Bring that up. Go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, because like business wise, that can be a little harder. Work wise, there's a lot more calculus involved. Social stuff, this is one of my favorite frameworks because if I'm like, well, okay, this person has a thing over here and this person has a thing over here, or I can stay home and play video games, and I'm like kind of stuck. Then I'm like, wait, hold up, are any of these hell yeses? Let's start there. And it's like, oh, the pool party is the hell yes. The other twos are like kind of good. Okay, I'm done. Decisions made, going to the pool party, and like I've just now eliminated the entire
Oh
decision
yeah.
making process. The only time you end up with getting stuck with that one socially is if you have two hell yeses. I had that last week, and I had like this cool friends gathering, and I had a wrist lock seminar over at Josh's MMA gym. I was like, shoot, I had to pick, and it was tougher.
Did you ever think
Or
do the wrist locks at your friend's gathering though?
they that particular set of friends wouldn't have been as open to that as you would hope. um, and then the only other time the hell yes thing won't work is if you have an actual obligation for something.
Yeah,
And one of the other frameworks I often suggest to people is that you really have fewer obligations than you will easily make up that you do. But I mean, sometimes you have real obligations to people. But yeah, like the hell yes, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no framework. I love it, especially in the social context, because it'll solve 99% of your questions about what you should be doing with your weekend.
that's awesome. Yeah, like I said, once I actually started taking it seriously and thinking about it that way, I'm like, man, like this really does like work and make sense. But like you said, like especially once you start learning about moving around that obligation with it, or again, like your necessities, like says, like are your necessities taken care of? Otherwise, you can start really applying it really well.
Yeah,
Uh,
and even in other areas it'll work some, but it's not as useful a framework in more advanced decision making. Like, oh, do I leave this job or stick with it? Yeah, that's not as good a framework for that kind of thing.
All right, man. Any bullet points you want to end this with?
Well, actually, so we got to talk about one, even if
Oh,
only
you got more?
briefly,
Okay. Yeah.
because I got one more bullet point. Because and this is tough, especially for the control freaks, both sitting here in the podcast together and out there listening. Uh, Delegating is automation.
Ooh. Okay. I'm gonna hide.
Yeah, it's okay. Have your panic attack. Breathe into the bag. Come back. Delegating is automation, and even for the person who does not employ other people, there are tons and tons and tons of ways to delegate. Oftentimes requiring money. So if you're short supply on money, this section might not be for you. But as soon as you are able to utilize it, you really should. Because what a lot of people will do is they'll hold on to tasks that they are not good at and that they are not intending to get good at far longer than they really should. Uh, and there's a lot of ways to delegate that are way cheaper even than you thought. I didn't realize how cheap it was to get groceries delivered to you. We delegate out groceries sometimes, because the delivery fees on that, at least in our area, are like stupidly low. It might be higher in other areas. Uh, Cleaning is a popular one. A lot
Mhm.
of people have a house cleaner clean their house. Not and what's weird is people make up a lot of reasons not to delegate, and the cleaner one is especially because a lot of people will get in their head that they're this like a Gucci luxury thing. But really, it's just delegation. You just, hey, here's a task I would really rather not be doing. Let me automate this and, have my person come in and do it. And if they can do roughly as good a job as me, like why not delegate that?
Yeah, and you pointed out so many other reasons right there, like other reasons people struggle with these. One is the I should do it. Like I said, we have this archaic notion of things we should do or should be in charge of. Um, Two is like can you spend money on it or not? I mean, that's a very real one. That's personally dependent. But there's the time you're going to save on it if you can. And another one is when you think about things like cleaning, very few people, like even if they don't notice it, almost everybody will feel better and less stressed out in a clean, organized house. Like
Yes.
things like that, or like yeah, when that stuff is done. I have friends like not around here. I don't know anybody who does it here, but I have friends like just living different areas of the country, um, who have who have hired like weekly come and clean your dog poop companies. Like there are companies that do that. And yeah, it's like $20 a week or something. They come and clean up your dog's poop from the yard. And again, it's one of those things like it's cool because it's like it's $20. We don't have to do it. Like all this, like, oh, like that's awesome. Like, would have never thought about that. So, but again,
Yeah.
like but that's one of those things like that. Like, yeah, there's so many like that. Um, and like I said, with the groceries, I mean, like there are so many ways you can do that. I mean, yeah, like the delegating. I mean, one of the other parts to it is like the because this is one of mine. Another one of like is I can do this better or I can do it
Hold up.
faster.
Pause. Go back. Your audio blurred out.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I actually just saw the bars go down. But either I can do this better or I can do this faster or both. And what happens though is we will use that as an excuse to never delegate something way beyond the number of times that we could, rather than realizing if you maybe take the time now to teach or to either make a process, teach somebody how to do something if it's a work job or whatever, or figure out maybe how to hire somebody in the future, or like soon to do it, that even though it might take you more time right now, maybe cost a little bit more money right now, in the long run, it will more than benefit you for that instead of you
Mhm.
doing it forever.
Yep. So let me talk about some non-standard delegations before we end the episode, because there's some things that are obvious. Like if I run a business and I'm answering the phones, it's obvious that I should be hiring somebody to answer the phones after a certain point. That's pretty obvious. There's certain types of delegation that are non-obvious. Uh, let's start with this framework. Anything can be delegated. Doesn't mean it should be, but anything can be delegated.
Mm.
Uh, if I really decide that I want to do it, I don't have to shave my own head. I can go to a barbershop and have that done for me. Literally anything can be delegated. One of the things that I've found is I make too many decisions in the space of my work week. When I go to have fun, I don't want to make decisions. I actually delegate the decision making for a lot of my fun having, right down to when we take vacations. We go with oftentimes with a pair of another couple, and the rule is I delegate out the decisions. Here are the 2 or 3 things that I hate. Other than that, I'm down for anything. You want to go take a Segway tour of the city? Great. You want to like have a silent meditation retreat in the woods? Great. Whatever. Like just tell me where to be and I'll be there. I delegate the vacation decision making, and I find that much more agreeable, and everybody else finds it agreeable because I'll just say yes to almost anything. So it's okay to think of like non-standard things or ways to delegate. So when you're trying to decide, is this type of automation for me? Don't get limited to just like services you can buy. Like, are there or shoot, I actually delegate my workout decision making.
Oh yeah.
Like that, so you can follow like a billion people on Instagram and stuff and buy however many routines and stuff you want. My workout decision making has been delegated to 2 people: Arnold Schwarzenegger's old books and Adam Fowle's present Instagram account. If it doesn't come from one of those 2 places, I don't take it in unless my PT tells me otherwise. That's it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And it's just been delegated that way, and they don't even know they got it delegated to them, but they're providing me the information I need.
Yep. So that's good stuff.
All right, so now I can bullet point.
Yeah, like I said,
oh man, your audio is dying. Yeah, it is time to bullet point because your connection is dying out there. So let me. So if we go back through this, yeah, that's okay. I'll handle the wrap up. So basically, the entire reason people need to automate for the purpose of just good wellness is we have too many things to do. All of the background work that we have to handle, our regular lives. So the ways you automate are automate through technology, which is the most popular way. Email filters, automated renewals and bills, reminders for stuff, but also automating through routines. Routines are automation. Decision frameworks are automation, and delegating is automation. All of these are terrific. You don't have to automate literally everything, but find the things that work for you, and you can clear up a ton of mental space. All right, it looks like you're back.
Yep. All right. I mean, yeah, I think it's going to help a lot of people. I had a great time here. Like, this is a good one. It's like almost everybody can benefit from some form of automation. In fact, not almost everybody. I'm just going to say it. Everybody can benefit from thinking about these things a little bit, seeing where it can just improve your life. And I said, just look for the points of the most friction. We were actually talking about that just before this. What provides the most friction in your day-to-day life right now, and start there. Like, see if there's things you can do there, macro frictions, micro frictions, you name it. But start with the things that are giving you the most problems. See where you can make it a little bit easier by finding some automations and work from there. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. And we'll catch you next time, next Asymmetric Habits.
See y'all.